Welcome back, everybody. It's good to see you guys. We have some expected absences due to the situation going on in Eastern Europe. So we're going to be a few less today, but we really want to thank you guys for being here, being present, and bringing your voices to this really important discussion, important conversation. All right, so we can imagine that many of us are, possibly distracted in our minds and hearts with the situation that's going on in Ukraine. But we've just seen in the last 2 days such an openness and a desire to learn from you guys. And I really want to thank you for that. And thank you for being here, because this is a really, really important topic. As I said, the Gen Z really is the future of our organization. Without youth, we are not youth with a mission. And that was one of the reasons why I was so excited to have Angelique come and teach with us these 3 days. So we're really grateful to have you guys here and have you guys just seeing this openness to learn how to do better and to learn how to communicate across generations and to understand each other better. So thank you so much for being here. I'm going to pray and we are going to get going. Father, we just want to thank you for who you are. We want to thank you for your goodness and your greatness. And Lord, we do just want to lift up the people that are in Ukraine right now, the situation that's going on there. We ask for your comfort on the people who are searching for safety. We ask for your wisdom in the leaders. And I just want to thank you for every person who has come today to hear about Gen Z and to know and understand this generation better so that we can care better for these guys and that we can understand each other better. So I just ask that you would bless Angelique as she teaches. We invite you to be in our discussions today. We invite you to be with us. In your name we pray. Amen. Go ahead, Angelique.
Thank you, Shelby. Yes, I'm glad we can dive into the topic of Gen Z again. And although my mind is a little bit also, with Ukraine, especially watching the news this morning, and on our news they interviewed quite some young people and like Gen Z people, and they were saying how much they were shocked and like this was the worst day, morning of their lives, and it is a huge impact. And as I showed when I started with Gen Z teaching 2 days ago, like it is so unpredictable nowadays, and nothing is sure, and things are happening, and in even COVID is not over, and now we're talking about war again, and the impact on the young generation. I mean, if you live 50 years and COVID is 2 years of your life, it's just a small part of your life. But when you're 10 and then you add 2 years of COVID, it is 20% of your life. So the impact is large, and you're still in the development stage of your life. And now they hear, of course, about war, and it's not only close to the Russian side, but it seems to impact whole Ukraine, and it's another wave of uncertainty that is coming towards younger generation, and that's the life the world we're living in at the moment, and I hope we can embrace and help this younger generation that lives with a lot of life questions already, and it seems that it is just keep on adding to them. And it's great that we have Jesus, and he is the answer. And I don't know how to answer these questions, but we know that he is the answer, and that we may have peace in our hearts when we have Jesus. And that's great. And I think that's the message for us as YWAM that we share to all generations. And so today I'll make it more practical. The theme of today is also thriving Gen Z. If you have any questions, you can either email me or put them in the chat. Is thriving Gen Z is today's topic, and I'm aware that a lot of information I give it comes from the spheres when I talk about generations, when I talk about Gen Z and communication. There's more research done, of course. within the spheres and information then within YWAM. So we have to adjust everything to our personal context and church context and the YWAM context. So that's what we will be doing today. And about how can we influence, we're talking a lot as YWAM, influencing the spheres. And it's a topic, I don't know if you've heard about YWAM 3.0 and things like that. How can we YWAMers more in the spheres? And I think when you want to influence the spheres, it's also important that you know what is going on in the spheres. And just to have this information so that you can influence it there as well. So I do have a question. If you can put in the chat the name of your location, maybe the place or the country, and how many Gen Z you have at your location. I'm just curious if and if you have none, then put in the chat your location and you say 0, but do put something in the chat that we can see, okay, how many Gen Z do we have in our locations? So Budapest has 2. MC Circle for YWAM Central Europe, none. Southern Spain, none. Constanza, Romania, 4. Brittany, Switzerland, 6. Great. Amsterdam, 2 in the team. Base 30. Team Scotland, 10. Western Sweden, 0. Yeah, so there are still some that don't have Gen Zs and some that have a lot of Gen Zs, especially when they're students. I think when you have a DTS running, you probably have, if you count the students as well, you will have more Gen Z. Yeah. So if you have on your location, if you did put on your location, how much are there in your team then? Can you then now put in the chat how many you have in your team? 2, 4, 4, 2, 1. Budapest, 15 in the team. Oh, maybe Budapest, can you explain a little bit? What is the difference?
Did you ask how many people are on our team?
No, I mean Gen Z people on your team.
Oh, sorry. Go back to 2.
Oh, okay. I thought,
I wish.
oh, maybe you have some other team that you're working with that has a lot of Gen Z. Oh. Wow, great to see that. Give some understanding that some of you have Gen Zs on your location and in your team, and some don't, which is also interesting to follow this seminar anyway, because I hope that when Gen Zs come to the teams where there are no Gen Zers, that you'll embrace them and know more how to keep them also and let them stay. I see a lot of YWAM locations struggling with having Gen Zs entering and staying on locations. And yet there are some locations, they have a lot of Gen Zers. And you see, when you have a lot of Gen Z on your location, it is easier to attract Gen Z to the location. And some of these locations have other problems. They miss the more elder generations as well. That's what I hear sometimes, that they say, oh, I'm 30, I'm the oldest. And we do miss some wisdom now and then. But there are some locations that are really struggling. And when there's not many, even if there's no many millennials, and so you're a little older as location, there is 1 or 2 Gen Zers entering, it is a challenge to keep them. And so they're not leaving within a year. And that is something actually what you see a lot, that Gen Zers, they come on staff, they commit for 2 years, and there's so many that I see leaving within the 2-year commitment. So they don't stay. It's not only a struggle for YWAM, actually, it's a struggle for churches to keep the Gen Zs in the church. Some churches do really well, and some churches see the Gen Z generation slowly leaving the church. It's the same actually that companies struggle with. because a lot of Gen Zers, they leave the workplace fast. If something is disappointing, they leave. There's a lot of opportunities for other jobs, so they tend to just leave if they see another opportunity or a bigger challenge, or if they think this fits better to me. So it is a generation that easy hops from one place to another place. And so it is not only YWAM that is struggling with this generation, but it is broader than that. It is also a generation that is just not so much into, I don't know if it's loyalty, but it's more they want to do missions and they like YWAM, but then suddenly they see an opportunity on Logos Hope. They'll go there, and then they'll go to maybe Mercy Ships or whatever. They just hop from one organization to another organization. They hop from one church to another church. They're not so much having this loyalty that generations had before. Like, okay, you're loyal to YWAM, you can maybe go from one location to another location, but you'll stay in YWAM. But they will just, go wherever they think they can develop more, or that they might feel more at home, or it goes more with their personal motivation or values, and it will easily switch. And that is something that is good to know, but also how can we then bond with them in a way that we are able to make them flourish in our locations. I think it's also a spiritual side with this, especially there is always, but now also there is a spiritual struggle, spiritual warfare going on about this next generation. And so it's also important to keep them in our prayers, to also pray for the next generation, and pray that they will just stay with God. And there's so much challenges in the schools and in society, and a lot that study, they go study and they lose their faith. And so it's also a spiritual battle for this next generation. And maybe nice to share, in YWAM we have a new initiative, and it's called Lead to Move. And we focus on youth leaders. And we just had our first day in November, and we had 86 youth leaders from all over the country that came. And we had a day of input, like YWAM style. We did worship. We had this map of the Netherlands, and then all the youth leaders kneeling on the map and interceding for the youth. For a lot of youth leaders, it was completely new. And then we had workshops on how to read the Bible, hearing God's voice, Generation Z, identity, and all these things. And a lot of youth leaders were like, oh, this is what we've been waiting for. They feel so alone sometimes in their church as well, to care for this next generation. And it was like a national initiative. So me and some others that have experience with leading young people, and we were just like, how can we bring our expertise together and train and encourage youth leaders? So that's actually what we did. We'll have a second day upcoming May. And since we've been launching this, we're kind of on the radar in the Netherlands. So we have a lot of other organizations, Christian organizations, approaching us. And how can we work together? So there will be a launch of a book, came from the States. It's Growing Young. I don't know if you know it. It's called Growing Young. They did research on young people and that stayed in the church, and they found seven different things that are important in a church or community that make young people stay. And it is being outward focused, Jesus-centered, invest in young leaders, and also hand over authority and put younger people in leadership. So that they have at all these 7 components. And now they've added some European research to it and Dutch research. And there's a new book launched in coming June. And we are now part of it with YWAM as well. And they want to launch the book, but also provide teachers from different organizations that can go and help churches to implement certain areas. And discipleship was one of them as well. How do you disciple the next generation? So YWAM is full on with this initiative as well in the Netherlands to have some teachers available if churches ask to help the churches with this new generation. So yeah, that's really nice to be part of that as well as YWAM in the Netherlands. So it's good to also in your country, in your location, try what can you do to help others with this Generation Z. I think it is about working together. It's not one church or one location that can do this, but we all have to take responsibility for the next generation. And it starts with embracing the new generation, and that is something I think that keeps repeating with every new generation that is coming in. Now it's Generation Z, then after this it's Generation Alpha, and we have to keep on embracing and welcoming the new generations. Well, we'll highlight Gen Z and start with, let's see, next slide. Yeah, we'll go to needs of Generation Z today. And it is important to, if you want to stay connected with the generation, to adapt your strategy, your way of teaching, your way of sending messages, and also content to specific needs and behavior of Generation Z. If you want to reach them, if you do a workshop for Gen Z, you have to do it really different than you do a workshop for, like, this is more intergenerational. So who is your audience? And if you want to reach Gen Z, then adapt your way of teaching, adapt your strategy, and even sometimes the content, the words you use. Well, if you want to reach them with content, they like pictures, images, and less text. They're very visual. That's what you see. They watch YouTube all the time. If they want to know how something works, they're not going to go to some kind of a guide to read, okay, how does this work? They go to YouTube and they see how it works. And that is how they learn stuff. Not by reading a manual, or that's how we used to do it. You go to the manual, but no, you go to YouTube and there you find it. So it's the videos. Shorter the better, straight to the point. And of course, don't forget humor. Humor is always very important. So if you interact with Gen Z, clear communication, I think this is a little bit of repetition of yesterday. Clearly, pure as possible. Stay close to yourself. That is important as well. They like authenticity. So don't try to be someone else if you communicate with Gen Z, but stay close to yourself. That is important. And be honest and open, and also listen well. They want to be heard, so listen well, really listen well to them. And that is interesting. Find out preferred terms. I spoke about it yesterday. What words do they use? How is the language changing? I mentioned the example of sharing faith over evangelism, and so there are some more words that they like to use, and it's just interesting to ask them. And the first thing we'll go to some opportunities that we see, great opportunities that we see in Generation Z. And I want to add, I'm now highlighting Gen Z. We'll have an overview of opportunities and also of challenges and areas that they need discipleship in. And of course, we can do this for all generations. I mean, when you look to the millennials, there's also opportunities and areas where you think, oh, those are a little bit weaker. They could use discipleship. As I mentioned, like my generation, Generation X, when I look to our generation, there's certainly areas that I think, those are not our strength. We could have discipleship in those areas. So it's not that Generation Z is weaker or whatever, but we're just tuning in, zooming in on Generation Z. So, and of course, never forget that you can't personalize this on each Gen Z person, because this is a broad overview and we're generalizing it. So not everything is applicable to each Gen Z person. So that is something not to forget. Well, I think Gen Z has great opportunities, and we'll go through 7 opportunities. And after that, we'll go into breakout rooms and to talk about how can we use these 7 opportunities. Do we use those already at our location? How can I use those opportunities from Gen Z in my team to just see, okay, what are you already applying to embrace these opportunities, or what can you change? So that's already a little bit the question that we'll dive in. So we'll go to the first opportunity. Well, Gen Z is the most high educated generation, and they are open for feedback and eager to learn. And they also want to learn and want to develop. And maybe that is one of the reasons that they are leaving churches or YWAM, because they want to develop into their skills, their competencies. So do we offer enough training opportunities or leadership development course when they come on staff? How do we embrace them, and how do we use feedback and help them with this eagerness to learn, that they keep this eagerness to learn and develop? And what are we giving them so when they leave and go back into the spheres of society, that they have something extra that they learned within YWAM that they can take with us? But it's a great opportunity that are so much open to learn. So what do you do with that? The second one, opportunity, they are the most diverse generation. And that makes that they are intercultural sensitive, which is a great opportunity because we have a very international organization. A lot of locations are intercultural, and some people struggle with that. And this generation seems to embrace this way easier. So they are open-minded and tolerant. You'll see that this one is an opportunity, but it's also an area of discipleship. But let's look at it as an opportunity. They're open-minded, tolerant, open for change. How can we use that? They are sensitive to exclusion and discrimination. So they easily sense if there is something going on of exclusion or discrimination. So how can you use that to make your team and your location as inclusive as possible? And they are world citizens. They know what's going on at the other side of the world. They know what's going on with their peers at the other side of the world. So this is another great opportunity. They are realistic about their own qualities and competencies. They know what they're good at, and they know what they better can't do. So this is also an opportunity to talk with them about their strengths and their weaknesses, and what are they good at, what do they want to develop, where can they most function well. I think we can use this with the onboarding of staff. They're quite realistic if they can't do something, and probably also they don't want to do it then. So what is the best place where they can function? Do you know actually the qualities and the competencies of the Gen Zs that you have in your location and in your team? Where are they strong at? And how can you use that? And they don't overrate themselves generally. And that's why they like the learning and the feedback, because they're very realistic. Another one is that they are hard workers. They have a great sense of responsibility, but they need to be well instructed, and they need clear guidelines and clear expectations. That's what we heard a little bit yesterday already. So if you give good instructions and clear guidelines and clear expectations, they will be hard workers. So do you see this opportunity? And if you don't see them work hard, or you see, sometimes people say, I don't see this sense of responsibility. Okay, how can you figure out what is missing? What is missing? Is it that they are not instructed well, so they don't know what to do? Then they will probably withdraw because it's not clear, they don't know what to do, so they will withdraw and not start even because they think I will fail if I start because it's not clear what the expectations are. And that could be something that they don't start. But if you have them, they are hard workers and they have a great sense of responsibility. So how can you use that? So that was another one. It's also a creative generation. They can think out of the box. They can come up with creative ideas. And do we have space for creativity for them? Do we have space for the generation to also bring in their ideas and bring in their creativity and come up with suggestions? And sometimes it's a pitfall for the older generation when they come in with their ideas and say, oh, we've tried that already. That doesn't work. And if you do it only 2 or 3 times, they won't come up with their ideas anymore. But yet, maybe what didn't work 10 years ago could work now because there's a new generation. And maybe it could work. But sometimes we are, and I say myself as well, our generation could think, oh no, we've tried that. We've seen that. We've done that. And that is disappointing. But how can you create an atmosphere that they come with their creative ideas and like the generation that gone before us that pioneered YWAM, they came with all crazy ideas. They just did it, and there were not so many older ones that say, don't do it, this doesn't work. And that is what they hear a lot. This doesn't work. Are you sure? Maybe you should pray more. But where are those people? Can we be the people that say, okay, I'll support you. I'll pray with you. I'll go for you. Go for it. I'll help you. I'll mentor you. So that they get a lot of disappointments and discouragement. And how can we encourage them? And of course, you can ask some questions, but it depends on the tone and how you ask questions, if it is encouraging or discouraging. How can we help them to, with this creativity, and how can we use it? Entrepreneurship. I see entrepreneurship in them. Also to want to start new things. And not even only by themselves, but also in teams, but to start new things. How can we encourage this? There's a lot of locations that are so developed now after, we'll be 50 years of YWAM next year in the Netherlands, and there's so much developed. Do we still have room for new initiatives, or do they only contribute to existing initiatives? And if there's entrepreneurship in this generation, it's good to be aware that we have still room for new ideas and new ministries and new possibilities for them, and that it's not because YWAM exists 50 years that they are only asked to contribute within existing ministries. Of course, it's good to start sometimes and to serve. But generations before us, as YWAM is an apostolic organization, so many new things are born and birthed out of our organization. And it's good that we give opportunity to this for the next generation as well. And of course, you don't want them to go wild and destroy a lot of things. And that is where coaching and mentorship comes along. And that's why you are within an organization. But it's good to embrace this entrepreneurship that they have. And last but not least, they don't want to be consumers. They want to contribute and they want to be active. And this generation really wants to contribute. They want to see change, that their lives brings change, that their life make the world a bit better in some places that they are. They are not just for the adventure. And like millennials were more for the adventure and exploring, and they want to see change and they want to contribute to that. And I think those are the great opportunities that we see in this generation. So let's go to our breakout rooms for 15 minutes. And there's actually two questions. So what are you already doing at your location to embrace the opportunities that come with Generation Z? And if you don't have, you're probably not doing yet. But what new things can you do with opportunities that come to your location with Gen Z? Or maybe even what can you change so you will attract more Gen Z, if that could be the reason that you don't have Gen Z? I don't know all your personal context, of course, but what are you already doing, or what can you do with opportunities that come with this Generation Z? Yeah, so let's move into breakout rooms. Yes, well, welcome back. So can maybe one or two of you share what you've been talking about? What are you already doing or applying to embrace these opportunities of Gen Z? Or what do you think, oh, now I've heard this, this is what I want to apply in using this strength of Gen Z? So who wants to share something about your breakout room? Who wants to start?
Yeah, we had two bases represented, Norway and Amsterdam. And one of the things that were mentioned that already is happening is actually that there seems to be a great desire for Gen Z couples, young couples, to hang out with older couples. And that's been really working well in Norway, but also really focus more on asking questions and listening instead of coming with the truth. Just like a list of truth. So that's been working really well in Norway. And I think in Amsterdam, the things that we've talked about is how we're pretty good in challenging people to take responsibility in leadership. But then, so people are inspired, but we're not always good in actually training people well. So we've talked about how can we train even team leaders better, or staff better, and young people better, especially about what you said, the importance of having clear instructions and clear expectations. Yeah, I think those are some of the things that we talked about.
Thanks for sharing. I'd like to hear one more. So encouraging to hear.
We also talked a bit about this with at least where I am at Restonäs in Sweden, the base leaders and those who take are responsible for the DTSs are the millennials, so they're a bit older, and I wonder if they really understand what Generation Z wants. I have a feeling that they are more to, let's do something. There are no really clear instructions. It's not necessary for them. And that might be a problem then if you want to keep the Generation Z. I'd like to have some more input on that. Also, we talked a bit about if they're highly educated. How about University of the Nations? How does that function? Can we register them in a way that they feel that they, so to say, can get the education they want? Then there also came, is it good to have a lot of theoretical education? Where's the practice? I remember when I did my DTS in 1984, half of the time was practice. You were doing practical work in the afternoons to, so to say, reflect on the teaching you had in the mornings. There's also always a risk, but on the other hand, I mean, courses can be practical too. I'm a chemist. I do chemistry. I mean, in the laboratory. That's practical things to do, and that's important too. And you can put that in the courses. That's some other things we talked about.
Yeah, I totally agree on that. Courses can be practical too. Doesn't have to be only theoretical. but also how do you then put the theory into action and help them to make that transfer to do that. So I think that is important as well to do that. And I know some locations started with an basic leadership training for new staff, all new staff, to have them one morning or one afternoon each week, just to go through some basic leadership things and talk about personal development. What do they want to, where do they want to develop themselves in, having some coaching and mentoring talks with them along the way for the first year when they are on staff. And then you see them each week. You can ask how they're doing, set maybe small goals, talk with them, help them in how to start things, how to start conversations maybe that they find difficult. So you're more on top of things. But yeah, great to hear those things. And I think also to set the expectations. That's what I heard you say when millennials were more, okay, we'll do this, we'll do that. But Gen Z wants to know, okay, I'm coming on staff. What do you expect from me? And then they will go for it. But it has to be clear. And I think it's also something for now that their home front or the people that sponsor them are more asking. Before they were, oh, you go to YWAM, I support you. And now it's often also more, okay, what are you doing? What exactly are you doing? And they say, yeah, I don't know exactly. I'm just going to YWAM. I'm not sure yet what I'll be doing. And so they feel uncomfortable with that as well. So for them, as well as for the supporters, it is helpful so what are the expectations? So we'll go more into the discipleship areas. And after this, we'll do another breakout room so you can then talk about what are the discipleship areas, how do you see this? So the first one, and of course it's not complete. I'll just pick some things what I think that can we apply, but there's more than I will share today, but that's also due to time. We talked about this generation being very spiritual sensitive, and that is a challenge, and it is a great opportunity because they're very much open for the spirit, but they do pick up a lot in the spiritual area, and you have to teach them if everything that they are experiencing is that from God. There's so many voices in this world, and you have to train them to distinguish what are the voices of the world and what is the voice of the Spirit, and train them to know the voice of the Father. And John 10, very famous, verse 3 and 4 says, he calls his own sheep by name and leads them out. When he has brought out all his own, he goes ahead of them, and his sheep follow him because they know his voice. You have to teach them to know the voice of the Father, because often they hear maybe they hear something, and sometimes you're wondering, God is speaking this today, and God is speaking something totally different the other day, and is this their feeling? How can you teach them? Is it your feeling you're listening to, or is it really God? Because God is not changing every day. If he gives you a question, or he gives you something that he asks you to do, he's not changing all the time. So, but they are so sensitive to pick up all kinds of informations and maybe even hear other voices. I don't know, but it's good to be aware of this spiritual sensitivity and disciple them to really start and listen and recognize the voice of the Spirit and how to deal with other voices that are going on. And maybe they've been exposed to other voices before they came to YWAM, before they came to the DTS, and there needs to be some deliverance of that, or some things need to be broken to really be sensitive to only to God's voice. So that is some area to be aware of that might need discipleship, and at least might need some conversation with Gen Z to be aware of that. And another area is it has to feel good. That's what you hear all the time. If they want to decide something, do you want to do it or not? I don't know. It doesn't feel so good. Yes, it feels good. And so they go a lot on their feeling. They live from the heart and maybe their own inner wisdom. And a choice has to feel right. And even if it's a very irrational choice, you could say, maybe if you think, you make another decision. Yeah, but this feels good. And that is really an area of discipleship, and to talk with them about following their inner wisdom versus following Jesus and being led by the Holy Spirit. And what God spoke, and you started something, you came on staff because God spoke it, and now you have some disappointments, and your students said something not so nice, and now it doesn't feel good, maybe I'll quit. So it is okay if God called you to do it. It doesn't change if it doesn't feel right anymore, because we all go through struggles, and that is what life is. And so we have to teach them to live a spirit-led life and not a feeling-led life. And that is different. But because feelings can be different every day, and depends when they are tired, or if they're in another country and they are homesick. And those are all feelings, which is good, which we can help them with and talk about. But yeah, life is not always about feeling good. And it says in this text, Romans 8:5, those who live according to the flesh, feelings maybe, have their mind set on what the flesh desires. But those who live in accordance with the Spirit have the mindset on what the Spirit desires. I think this is so important to talk about with them. And Galatians 5:25 says, since we live by the Spirit, let us keep in step with the Spirit. So this is also being led by the Spirit. Another one, Matthew 16:24. Then Jesus said to his disciples, whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me. Oh, I don't think this feels good. So there's a lot in the Bible when you die, but this is take up your cross and follow Jesus. So sometimes life, and sometimes living a Christ-like life, sometimes leading in YWAM, being staff in YWAM, it is taking up your cross and following Jesus, because we believe that we are called. That's why we are in YWAM. But it doesn't always feel good. And that is really the other way around then nowadays in the world. It's all about feeling good. It's all about emotion. Even if you watch television, they say we don't sell products, we sell emotions. Even if you see a commercial about a holiday or even buying a tent, they say you're not buying a tent, you're buying memories. And it's all about emotions. And and the Bible says something different, and that is good to know and to remember. And we have to teach them perseverance, and that is in Romans 5:3-5, because we know that suffering produces perseverance, and perseverance character, and character hope, and hope does not put us to shame, because God's love has been poured out into our hearts through the Spirit who has been given to us. So even suffering leads to character. And when we think that Gen Z doesn't have enough character, they only can develop this through suffering and perseverance. And that doesn't feel good all the time. So that is something to really disciple them in. And I think mentorship is important in this. And also because it says in Proverbs 11:14, for lack of guidance, a nation falls, but victory is won through many advisors. So if they are doubting some things and it doesn't feel good, encourage them to not go by their feelings, but look for advisors and mentors and help them to make good decisions. And that is so important. So that was the second area. Then a third one is, we talked about that a lot of Gen Zs have life questions, huge life questions. Why am I here? Why do I exist? I don't belong, feelings of not belonging here. And did you ever talk with the Gen Zs on your location about life questions like that? Deep life questions. Some are really struggling with, even if they want to live. I think, suicide rate is high. And if you are even in youth meetings and you ask who has ever had a thought that they don't want to live, there's a lot of young people that raise their hand. It's not that they're going to commit suicide, but that they have had the thought. And are you aware of the Gen Zs that are in your location, in your team? What are the life questions they're struggling with? Maybe you have Gen Z that is not struggling with life questions, could be, but if you never ask, you don't know, because a lot of this generation, they struggle with life. So have you ever asked them? And maybe you should just start this conversation with them. Another one that is really, really challenging. This is challenging companies as well. And just one first impression. I saw it when I was teaching at school, and our students had to go to an traineeship. Sometimes after one day they came back, I'm not going back there. And they were been there one day and they are ready to quit. And that is new. And that you have just one first impression. So this is so important to know for the onboarding of staff. You can only start the first day. You can do it only once, and you can do it good. So if a new staff member of Gen Z is entering your location or is entering your team, make sure you prepare it well. They tend to stop quickly if it no longer feels good, or if something disappointing or difficult happens. But this first day is so important, that they feel welcomed, that they know on forehand what to expect, that they know where to be, who they will meet on the first day. Even you can maybe connect them to another person that will stay with them the whole day, so that they feel safe and embraced. And that is so important. That helps them a lot. If that first day, first week is really taken care of. It's not, okay, oh, you are there already. Oh, okay, you're earlier than I expected. Let's see what we can do today. And that is so different than, okay, yes, I was looking forward. And even for DTSs, I think some students, they ask a lot of questions. We have a contact center in Heidelberg, and one lady there, she said, oh, now I do understand. I have these DTS students, they keep on asking questions, so many questions that I've never asked when I started my DTS. They want to know everything. So I told her it could even be helpful to already make like a small video. This is the classroom, this will be your door, this is the staff, and just give some information, and that will help them. It's somehow one of the needs they have in this like insecure world, looking for security, and that might be helpful. So what the first impression is very important, more than was before. So make sure that you prepare things well. And it's all about, do you see me? And am I important? So this also goes with the clear instructions and information. And that is what they need. Another thing they find very difficult is making choices. And there's different things that come to that. They want to do it well. They want to make the right choice. And sometimes they find that so difficult that they don't make choices because they just also have this fear of failure. So they don't want to make the wrong choice. What would happen? I told you all about, developing yourself, developing your life, the pressure of having a happy life, and that you have to make it all yourself, which is of course not biblical. And if you make a wrong choice, it's not a problem. And if you make a choice prayerfully, it is okay. And it's okay if you make mistakes, things like that. So that is something that we can help them with. And what if you choose wrong? Well, then you choose wrong. It's not a problem, but it's something that they really struggle with, and in making choices. So they tend to postpone choices all the time, and it's something that we can help them with. And also here it is mentorship, having people that advise you, and also being led by the Spirit. Train them to hear God's voice, include God and prayer into making choices. And if God doesn't say, if God speaks, do what He says, and don't quit, and just being led by the Spirit. They have difficulty with commitment. That also has to do with the fear of missing out. If I commit to do this, I can't do that. So if I do this 2 years, then I have 2 years of my life in this, then I can't do that. But it goes way further. It goes into relationships. It goes into even decide to commit to marriage. If I do marry this person, what if I then later in life meet that person, but I'm married to that person, so I can't marry that person. So I don't know if I want to decide to get married, and I haven't seen good examples in my life. So I don't know if I'll commit to lifelong marriage. I don't know if I can commit to, so it is hard for them to commit. They didn't see good examples, but also, okay, I have to have everything out of this life that I can. That is what society says. If I do this, I miss that. And that's what I shared earlier. They're probably not so much anymore committed to an organization, not so much committed to a church, not committed to YWAM, but they might be committed to missions. So okay, you can do 2 years of YWAM, 2 years on Logos Hope, 2 years with Frontiers, and 2 years with Operation Mobilization, whatever. They just jump from one to another organization. That might happen. And it just sometimes is about who has the better offer. And if you see it in the workplace as well, 32% more of the Gen Z like to leave than millennials. And millennials quit jobs and change jobs already 2 times more likely than Gen Z. And so it is the turnover in jobs and everywhere is really high. And I think, I don't know, it's just the commitment that's very hard for them to commit. And sometimes you think you make a commitment with someone for 2 years, and then after half a year, they're already changing their minds. And then you can accept it, and you can't force them to stay, but you can also have a good discussion on what is the value of commitment. Why do we ask commitment? How does God see commitment to something? What can you reach when you have a commitment of 6 months? What is the impact? Because they want to have impact. So what is the impact difference of doing something 3 months or 2 years? And that are things that we can help them with and disciple them in, and teach them also the value of commitment. And not just accept, okay, we'll see when they come, we'll see when they go. And but help them and disciple them in this area. And are we aware of this? I think we are when they leave, but are we aware of why are they doubting their commitments? What do they think they're missing? What are they hoping to find somewhere else when they're leaving? And we can talk about that, not start early again, but early enough, because if you start when they leave, you can't keep them. But if you have an open conversation And that is maybe one of the most needed conversation. It's good to talk about that with the generation. Talk about commitment, ask what they need, do evaluations, give feedback, and don't wait till they leave. And that would be earlier. Then the instant gratification, we talked about it already. And in real life, this is not always working. And we have to teach Gen Z how to cope with disappointments in life, with situations that take time, with waiting for answers, with pressing on. And we can't manipulate God to answer fast. Sometimes we do have to just to wait and to see. We have to learn patience. And it's a lot. Yesterday or the day before, we had a small discussion in the team about mindfulness. A lot are talking about mindfulness, yet they have this instant gratification, and they want to be at ease, and they're a lot going into and talking about mindfulness. And I think being in God's word and being in his presence and just pondering on the Bible, that is somehow also some kind of mindfulness. And maybe if you explain it that way, that it's easier for them to grasp it. But I found this verse in the Bible, and I thought, this is great. Whoever has patience, it's a typing mistakes, it is patience, has great understanding. And I think that is good, that we can teach them and disciple them, learn them. Okay, if you want to have great understanding, then you have to learn some patience. And it's not all about instant gratification. I think if you have only instant gratification, it's a lot about me, and it's less about understanding. And this is a good verse. Then open-minded and tolerant. I think it's one of the opportunities, and it is also a weakness, as an area that needs discipleship. They grow up in society with others in their class from other religions, from other views on sexuality and gender, and those are their peers, and those are their friends, those are their neighbors, and they want to somehow protect them, not reject them, and that makes them open-minded and tolerant to all different views and opinions. And it is important to teach them biblical values and a biblical worldview, and ask them. Sometimes they want to start conversations. Yeah, but I do want to start a conversation. And then it's the question, what is behind that? It's good to talk about those issues. And I think it is important, and also as YWAM, to formulate our view on that, our maybe even more our theology on certain questions that are talked about now, when it goes about the whole gender diversity and homosexuality, to maybe me have more like a centralized opinion on that than only our value that we believe marriage is between a husband and a wife. But what is the question? Do they want to change our theology by starting a conversation because they are so open-minded and tolerant, because we are talking about their friends? Or do they want to learn more about God's view on situations, and do they want to hear more so they can answer towards their friends? And there are difficult discussions, but you see that Gen Z is so open-minded and tolerant towards everything almost. And when you Google on internet, you can find an answer, somehow biblical answer on everything you want, and every theology is, you can find an answer to. But what is, and that is the struggle that they have as well, what is the truth? Where can we find the truth? Because you can find all different opinions on the internet, and they all say that they are the truth, but what is really is the truth. And it is, for us to help them to find it. And then we teach them biblical values, not based on internet only, not based on feelings, but based on the Bible and on God's word. And that is something that it's good they're open-minded and tolerant, but we have to make sure that it is still biblical. And that is some area that needs some teaching for them as well. So we'll go into another breakout room for 15 minutes. And after that, we'll have a break. And these are the breakout room questions. What can I change in my approach or the approach of allocation towards Gen Z? And then in the area of discipleship. So that was the first question in the opportunities you see, but in the area of discipleship. And also, it's not here, but how are we aware about these discipleship areas of Gen Z? Were we aware of these discipleship areas of Gen Z, or is this like new? And now we are aware. What can you then do and change in your approach towards Gen Z? And then make it practical. And maybe if you have time, or if you don't answer those questions, if a Gen Z person is leaving without fulfilling their commitment, do you know the real reason why they are leaving? That could be an interesting question as well. If you have time enough, or then you could talk about that. But it's more like, what can you do towards Gen Z in these discipleship areas? Better. Is there someone that wants to share what you have been talking about?
Well, in our conversation, we came on, there nearly needs to be something like a pre-DTS, where you teach them basic life skills like getting out of bed in the morning and how to clean a room. Yeah.
Yeah, they seem to come with less life skills than generations before, maybe because they're pampered a lot by their parents. They spend a lot of time in school, they're educated, but the parents somehow spoiled them, I think, doing a lot of the laundry and the cleaning. And that's what we see. At least I see some of you nodding, like, okay, yeah, you recognize this. I do recognize it as well. Sometimes it's like, okay, I heard a team leader who said it's more that I jump in the role of a mother than a leader. And sometimes that is what you see, happening. So, and I don't know if we can change this. Either you can't accept a person like that on staff, or you have to somehow train them in those basic life skills and help them to develop that. Another thing where we'll jump in is what we see with this generation sometimes see lacking is resilience. So I will go a little bit into resilience. And we
talked, I just have a short comment, because you said that they are very spiritual sensitive, and I think that's very hopeful for us in YWAM, because hearing God's voice is one of our primary values, and I think maybe Generation X and the millennials have lost that a little bit in YWAM, but now it's coming a new generation that's very important again, and that gives me very hope for the future and this next wave of millennial Cs in YWAM, and just a good reminder for us in leadership that when we are doing leadership meetings, to really allow the Holy Spirit to speak, and to teach each other that kind of, bring that back again, because I think it's almost been lost in some of our YWAM bases for some years. So that's hopeful.
Yeah, thank you for adding that. It's so true. Yeah, it's really true. Yeah.
Yeah, and we also talked about, but you're coming into that resilience now, because I just think about COVID and the things that our Generation C has been through, And I think that this list, it's very described the millennials. But I think if you do this course in 2 years' time, you will not find some of these because of the generation C has changed during COVID. Because I think they have learned that everything doesn't feel so good. And they learn that it's kind of, it's difficult. Yeah, life is actually hard. So they have been taught resilience a lot. So that will be very interesting to see in 2-3 years' time. What is the fruit of the season we're living in now? So
yeah, that's true, because it has been weird 2 years, and will have quite some influence on Gen Z, how they develop further. And I will share a little bit on resilience. And we were talking about resilience in the LTS already before COVID hit. I think to put that as a topic, and I think it's so important for ourselves, but also for the millennials and Gen Z. I think it is a lot needed in society as well as in our locations. And they say resilience is actually one of the most important 21st century skills. And we needed resilience, especially with COVID. You needed a lot of resilience, and you saw people struggling with that as well. And I'll share my screen. And resilience is the ability of a person to deal with surprises, changes, and unexpected setbacks in a healthy manner. And that is actually what resilience is all about. And I'll go through it really fast, but I'll recommend you a book. And if you want to know more, it's this book, 7 Resilience Factors, Competences that are needed for a resilient lifestyle. This book is from Paul Donders. He's very well known, I think, in Germany, and his book is in English, but I think in multiple languages. He's Dutch, actually, but they lived in Germany for a long time. And Paul Donders is actually somehow involved in YWAM. He is not a YWAM, but he is in the board of our IWT Impact World Tour. We have a location in the Netherlands, YWAM location from Impact World Tour, and he is in the board of that location, which is really nice. And he has a company, Expand, which is in a lot of countries in Europe, and they teach a lot on resilience. And one of their team members taught on it in the LTS, and I just took some things out of that. But if you want to go more deep into it, I could recommend you this book. And also it could be helpful to read this book, take from it, and use it as a tool to talk with your Gen Zs or millennials at your location, and then go through it and maybe per chapter and see how they're doing. How can you strengthen? Because you can develop resilience. It's not, okay, I'm not resilient, you are, okay, that's how it is. No, you can develop your resilience, and that is good to know. So we'll go through these competencies, and the first one is Reconciled Past. And we all have past experiences, and those experiences influence us. And they influence us how we live our lives, how we lead, how we communicate, how we approach life. And we were talking in our group that there's so many new students that come in, and Gen Zs that seem to have already so much happening in their past. They come with so many trauma or other things that have happened, and so many issues. And so it is, and that is not helping to be very resilient. It's good to somehow reconcile yourself with what has happened and becoming emotional healthy. And everybody has a story. And it's good to look, what are successes? What are talents that you have developed over the years? What are lessons you've learned through the crisis in your life? And what gold is hidden in your life story? If things happened, it brings gold out of it. So it is not, of course, it's not nice what happened, but you can see the gold in it. How did it make you to the person that you are? And if you are reconciled with your past, it helps you and it enables you to deal with the present and with emotional pressures that come your way. And therefore, you are also more forgiving and kinder if you somehow reconciled with your past. If you have, some might need therapy for that, others need just some good mentor, someone to talk to, and it always also helps you to are more thoughtful towards others and yourself if you have peace with your past. And it is one of the things that is important to be aware of, the history in your life and the things you've gone through. Not just hide it, but make sure that you deal with it. Deal with things that you need to do more. And dealing with fears sometimes. Dealing with the fear of not being good enough. Fear of rejection. Fear of people leaving you. Fear of losing control, fear of losing respect. And that all has to do with some things that happened in the past. Things that happened in the past have a lot of influences. How you approach life, how you start relationships, how you dare to step out in responsibilities. And you have successes and you have failures, and it influences you. And it is important to look at that. And also, what talents and motivating circumstances are the coming red thread through your life and through your life story. And that is good to look at and to come at peace with that. And healthy leaders, if you are in leadership, are able to experience the entire spectrum of emotions without being deaf to a specific emotion, if you are reconciled. They're good at self-reflection and are capable of analyzing themselves well. It's good to also be able to analyze yourself. Why am I responding this way? Why am I responding with these emotions, often connected to past experiences? And healthy leaders are good at dealing with disappointments, recognizing their own weaknesses and using these in a constructive manner. And if you dealt with things that happened in the past, you're more able to deal with things that come your way in a constructive manner than reacting out of pain and woundedness. And that's why it's important to look at your past. And if you deal with it, it will help you to be more resilient than if you don't do that. Another factor is realistic optimism. And a basic trust in life and in yourselves gives a positive perspective on stressful challenges. And you're more likely to recognize positive learning opportunities and positive actions to tackle challenges in life and to tackle stress, because it is about dealing, and resilience is about dealing with unexpected situations, and that often causes stress. But if you are more optimistic person, you can look with a realistic optimism towards the future. That will help you to be more positive and to be more resilient. Realistic optimism also makes you more grateful, and you are more likely to laugh about yourself or others or a situation. And you become quite good at putting things into perspective. And in doing so, you always take away a lot of pressure if you can put things in perspective. And some people find it very difficult to put things in perspective, but it is important. And realistic optimism also builds, it's good to build self-trust. That helps. If you have self-trust, that helps to be more optimism. You can do that either through sport or through a hobby, through music. Find things that you're good at, find things that you like to do, that you can develop something in as well. A lifestyle of gratitude is very important, and I think that is so much connected with YWAM to see the good things that are happening each day. Even like you have this daily examine, we did that in the LTS, looking back on each day. Where do I see God? Where am I grateful for? What happened today? And if you have a lifestyle of gratitude, that helps to live a more optimistic life. And it's so important. And also to enjoy the beautiful things that are there and discover the beauty in nature. Come, be mindful, read the Bible, enjoy the things that you are given, and see the beauty in small things. And I think that also helps to develop some realistic optimism. And it's good to be aware, are you more an optimism person or more pessimistic person? And that's sometimes the difference in character. And if you are leaning more towards the negative side, it's good to train yourself to be thankful for things and to try to look it more into a positive way, and because that will help you to be more resilient. And it's good to know that, and also to know this for yourself, but also for people that might struggle with the resilience, to help them to be aware of it. And sometimes we see it easier in another person than we see it in ourselves, if we are optimistic or more pessimistic. The third one is the problem-solving competence. People that are easy in problem-solving have a strong competence in this area. When something hits them, there comes an unexpected situation, something happens, you have those people that immediately think in opportunities and how to solve this. And if you can develop that competence, that is really helpful. Some people are just somehow freezing, they just don't know what to do. And that makes you almost doing a step backwards. And that is not very, very helpful. But some have this more natural than others. So things that are important is the strategic thinking, design future, but also analyze implications of what is happening. What scenarios can you do? That problem solving. And it means your head not constantly full, but that you can think clearly when something happens. And that gives less stress because you see opportunities, how to solve this. You see multiple scenarios that you can do. And it helps you also, if you have this competence, if you develop it, to improvise, to be creative. And assertiveness, how do you pronounce it? Assertiveness. I know the Dutch word, but it's almost the same. But anyways, forgive me if I pronounce it wrong. It is important, but because then you can say yes to things, you can say no to things, you can prioritize, you don't get overwhelmed by others or by circumstances. So that is important to have that and learn to say yes and no to things, and to have some to discern what things are important. I think that is so important. So that also belongs to problem-solving competence. If a lot of things come your way and you feel overwhelmed, what do you do? And if you know how to react in an assertive way, your response to stressful situations is more controlled, because you know, okay, this is what I stand for, these are my priorities, I can say yes, I can say no, and that will be helpful. And then the stress is much less, and the impact of that is much less on your well-being. So also know priorities, know how to prioritize when things hit you in an uncertain way. And it's also, but that's for leaders, so maybe not for Gen Z, all Gen Zs, but leaders gladly take responsibility and do not easily blame others, because sometimes what happens if a problem comes or some things unexpected happen, we could jump in blaming others for that happening. But when you're a healthy leader, you know when to take responsibility for that and solve it as well, but own like the problem and solve it, and not just blame others. So if you do this, take the responsibility, that shows that there's a healthy resilience. Then working with your skills, and I think this is really, really, really important. The intrinsic skills that you have. If you can employ your intrinsic skills for at least 1/5 of the time in both your work life and private life, you will feel much more in your element. And I think it is so true. I once followed a seminar on burnout, and they also said if you function in your intrinsic skills, it is like prevention. So they even said a vaccination against burnout. It's so important to function where your strengths are, where your passion is, what motivates you. And if you do that, it makes you more resilient. If you're doing all kinds of things that you actually don't want to do, that don't fit to you as a person, that don't go with your passion, you will go into a burnout. So, and even what they say, only 1/5, which is not a lot. It's only 20%, and you can't do 100% because you always have to do like things like cleaning the toilet, administration, all those other things that probably are not so much your passion. But be aware that you're always doing something that is within your intrinsic skills, intrinsic passion. And ideally you do it more, and sometimes that is not happening. But this will also help you to be more intrinsic motivated and less dependent on external motivation factors, because it comes from inside of you, the motivation to do the things that you do. And that motivation provides you with the necessary energy that you need to deal with everyday things that come your way. And it also helps you pace yourself actually through life, and instead of making short sprints all the time. So grow your talents. That is important. Grow your talents, take your place, and also know your why. Why am I doing these things? That is so important, that you know, why am I doing the things that I'm doing? So let's go in a breakout room for 10 minutes, groups of 3, and just talk a little bit now. How are you actually doing yourself in those 4 areas? So the reconciled past, the realistic optimism, problem-solving competence, and working with your skills. Are you working with your skills a lot? Do you know how to solve problems naturally? Do you have this optimism in life? And what about your past? And let's just be honest and see how is this in our own life before we talk about it with our Gen Zs or millennials at our location. Those first four competencies. The next one, discipline. And I saw already some of you that you still need to help the Gen Zs to get out of bed in the morning and to do rhythms in their lives. And discipline is one of the competencies that helps you to develop your resilience. And it is actually a very natural attitude within a resilient lifestyle. So if you have a resilient lifestyle, you have discipline in certain areas. And you can tackle situations in a more structural way and are much more able to endure longer stressful periods if you have a healthy lifestyle. And so that means enough exercise, that means that you eat healthy, that means that you get plenty of sleep. So if you are in a stressful period of time that you can't have enough sleep, that you just had it before, so that you're rested. And if you are healthy, you're also able to cope with negative stress, better able to cope with negative stress. And we all know when you're tired, you're not able to cope with stress very well, or with difficult questions and things like that. Everything works better when you're rested and when you are healthy. And being disciplined also means that it's easier for you to learn new healthy habits and to get rid of negative stress. And when we think about discipline and healthy lifestyle, it is about actually 4 different areas. It is about movement, So do we have enough movement? Do we have like a daily, how many steps almost do you take every day? You can see it on your watch, on your phone. So how do you move? Weekly, do you do things for fun that are not only watching Netflix, but out there? Do you go for a walk or a hike or bike ride or whatever? Do you exercise for fun? So that is one area. Then sleep, the rhythm of sleep, and sleep 7 to 8 hours. And I was just hearing like, okay, one of the staff is tired. What was the time you went to bed? Yeah, 3 in the morning, and now I have to be there at 8 or 8:30. I'm so tired. Yeah, just to help them, or maybe some even have to help themselves still, to have just a natural, good rhythm of sleep. So you have 7 to 8 hours of sleep every night, and that really helps with your resilience. I worked as a teacher for over 12 years. And if you are tired and you have 30 students, it's not going to work. So that's where I learned to be really on top of making sure that I got enough sleep, because it helps a lot. And students immediately see it when you're out of balance, and they see it, they notice it, and it works all better when you are rested. With kids as well. If you have kids, you're often tired, especially when you have small kids. And yet it works better with kids. You have more patience when you're rested than when you're tired. Food, healthy food is important, also has to do with discipline. And also plan quiet moments in your day, plan quiet moments in your week or in the month. With the LTS, Leadership Training School, we were talking about taking a Sabbath day a week, the importance of a Sabbath. That's a good book as well. The Emotionally Healthy Leader. Probably you all know that book. We've gone through it with the LTS to a couple of chapters, and it's so good to implement those rhythms of rest as well. And that all has to do with discipline. And healthy leaders do not easily lose control over their emotions and desires, and have learned to deal with fears and internal contradictions. And yeah, I think discipline helps you if you want to get things done. If you have a full agenda or a lot on your plate, it helps to be disciplined in those areas like movement, sleep, food, quiet, but also in other areas, how to use your agenda, how to schedule your meetings, and it's very helpful. And it helps for a resilient lifestyle. And I think this is an area that maybe is the most weak in Gen Z, the discipline. It also has to do a little bit with the development of the front side of their brain, which is totally developed when they're 25. And that planning, the planning piece is in there. So that's why we struggled as teachers in school as well. And you have to learn to teach them how to, and to help them with planning. They just struggle with it, and when they're still young. So it's also that it's still developing in their brain. The sixth one is self-awareness. Self-awareness and passion allow you to experience your life as something meaningful, both at work and also private life and in YWAM. And it enables you to put stressful experiences into perspective more easily. And it is good to be self-aware and to be able to evaluate things, to reflect back on things. And you're better to face causes of your stress when you have self-awareness. You can think, okay, why is this causing me so much stress? And why am I reacting this way? What is actually happening? And self-awareness leads to self-confidence. If you have self-awareness, then your self-confidence can also grow. And healthy leaders strongly believe in their own ability. If you have self-awareness, you know why you were doing things, you know why you're reacting, and you know what are my values, what is my drive, what is my passion, why am I doing this, then it helps to believe in your own ability, because you are aware what you can and what you can't if you have awareness. And it helps leaders to have a positive influence on the situations they face in their lives as well. So self-awareness is the sixth one, and then we go to the last one. And also very important to have healthy relationships. If you have strong social competences, you will have a stronger base from which to act in a constructive way, even if hiccups come in your life, if there is negative stress factors, and you have healthy relationships. But many of the negative stress factors find their origin in unhealthy or even in hurtful relationships. And that's what we see sometimes. People have so many painful relationships, so many like the past connected to unhealthy friends, unhealthy family where they're coming from. So that's why this also connects a little bit back to the reconciled past. But it's good to develop strong social competences, and you will have a stronger base if you have those from which to act in a constructive way. People that will support you when you are having a hard time. And the stronger your social competences are, the easier you can deal with stress of uncertain and also stress of certain relationships in a positive way. And of course, there are different relationships. It is like partners, it is friends, it is parents, it is peers, but also mentors, mentees. I think it's always good to go all the way, both ways. Mentors, they mentor you, and you mentor others. So relationship mentees. Examples in your life. What are the healthy examples in your life? What are the people that you can learn from? Maybe they're not in a mentor role towards you, but you can still see them as examples. And it's good to have healthy relationships. So I did this really fast, so we can go one more time in the breakout room to talk about those three, how they are in your life. How are you doing with the discipline? Are you disciplined? Or maybe you can grow into having more discipline in your life. The healthy lifestyle of healthy food, healthy sleep, healthy movement, and the self-awareness and healthy relationships. Yeah. So, yeah, let's go into the breakout room. Yeah, you're all back. I hope you had good conversations in your breakout rooms. It was short, but it is mainly to keep you thinking about this subject. And yeah, if you want to know more, go to the website, Expand, or buy the book and dive a little bit more into it. It is an important 21st century skill. Yeah, for ourselves, but also for the younger generations and the new staff coming in, and how can we help them to develop that? Yeah, I'm almost at the end, and I would love to close off with a time of prayer together for Generation C, just to have some of you pray for them and bless them. And but yeah, before, maybe if there is a question still have a question you really want to ask, then you can unmute, ask your question. And it was encouraging to read in the chat, Gear, I don't know if I pronounce your name right, that you did this Expand training with YWAM Norway. And yeah, I know Andreas Nordli really likes the book, and that's why we had the training in LTS as well. And yeah, I think it's good. You said it was good, so it's recommendable to have that training.
It's a great way to improve your skills. So if you need to improve your leadership skills, it's a great course.
Maybe I'll give it over to you, Shelby. Can you lead us in prayer for Gen Z?
Yes, definitely. Father, we thank you for who you are. We thank you that you know each hair on our heads, that you know each of us better than we know ourselves. And this generation, as all generations, is one that's close to your heart. And Father, we do just want to bless them, even in the things that we find frustrating or that we just don't understand. Father, we want to give those frustrations, we want to give those questions back to you and ask that you would help us to see the people on our locations that are in this generation, and the people that are, coming, that we would see them through your eyes, and where we would receive your heart for them. These things that we've learned over these last 3 days would sink in deep. And so, Lord, we just want to ask for your vision. We want to ask for your heart. And we just want to bless these guys in your name.
Someone else has a prayer for Gen Z, please just unmute yourself and pray a prayer.
Father, let us not lose that generation. Lord, for some of us, this is our kids. Let us, that they don't get lost to the world with all the influence it has in their lives. But help us by your Spirit to connect with them, Lord, and to care. And I pray that they would realize we do care. And would you teach us these skills, but also just give us the right heart attitude, how to reach out and how to instill in them passion and values, Lord, your values, your truth, so they can run on with the torch shining, Jesus. Let us not lose that generation.
Lord, I pray that you would give us a greater ability to hear their heart, to hear from their understanding, to ask good questions that will help them process and will help us get that understanding and glean from them from where they're at, Lord. I thank you for just the insights that you've given us in these weeks, these days, to see what commonalities are across this generation, and to then have the discernment to know how to apply it to the individuals, to their giftings and skillings, that we could call them to life, that we could be a mission that is reflected in their identity, Lord, that they would see YWAM as being a place that they can come and grow and express themselves, to be able to then share you and the truth of who you are outside, Lord. I pray that we would be a place that would welcome them to be themselves, and yet to also love them enough to help them grow and develop in the ways that you've called them to, God, and that they would bear with us as we embrace them. Lord, help us to see it, and to have eyes to understand, to have hearts that can love and expand bigger to the things that we have to change in order to embrace them where they are, Father. Lord, I thank you that you understand them and that you know them. And we ask that you would give us that revelation and that discernment, Jesus.
Now, Father, we thank you that you not only know and understand the generation where we're from, but also the culture and our personal background, and how we are so personally seen by you. And Lord, you are also the God of generations. And I pray, Lord, that that within our mission, we would make space for everybody, but also really take the place that you have for us. And Lord, I pray that we would be led by your Spirit and move from a place of love, that we would not communicate from irritation or annoyance or frustration, but that we would always communicate from the place where you are, that place of intimacy, of love, of commitment to one another, and to say whatever, we don't understand each other maybe right now, but we are committed to one another. And so, Lord, I pray that you would help us to love in the first place, and especially when we're being asked maybe to love in a way that is not familiar to us. Lord, I pray for your strength and your perspective in Jesus' name.
And Father, thank you so much for the beauty, the uniqueness, and the strengths of this new generation of Gen Z, Father. And Father, I pray that you help us to more and more to become people who know how to love and mentor this upcoming new generation well, Father.
Yeah, thank you, Lord, for this time that we had together and thinking about and hearing about Generation Z. And we want to bless them. We want to bless every student that is coming into our location. We want to bless every new staff that is coming into our location, and we believe that you are sending them with a reason, and pray that we may see the gold in each one of them, and just help them to grow and to disciple them, as we've done with everybody else that is coming to our locations as well, that we will just embrace them, and that we may reflect your love and who you are to them through our lives. Thank you. In Jesus' name, amen. Well, this was, I think, the end of my input to you. So I'll give it back to Shelby. It was a joy for me to be with you and share about this generation that is the passion for me, one of my passions. So Shelby.
Great. Thank you so much, Angelique. That was really, really fantastic. I've been just wondering if some of us wanted to take a minute to share, even with Angelique, give her some feedback. What was something that maybe really stood out for you in these last 3 days? A new thing that you learned, a new fear that you have now, or, anything that's maybe kind of swimming around in the front of your brain. Let's just take a few minutes and maybe give some feedback into maybe what's touched you during this time.
Yeah, thank you so much, Angelique. I really thought it was very, very helpful. And especially, I shared with our team, with my team, a little bit of what you shared. Also, some of the inputs that you've given, and I noticed that already it was quite helpful, because I explained to them yesterday. You said something about it's important that you explain why things are important to you and why are you doing things a certain way. So this morning we had a team meeting and I shared why we do certain things a certain way and why it's important. And even somebody said, okay, well, I didn't think it was important, but if it's important to you, then it's also important to me. And I thought, wow, this went super easy. So thank you so much. It was really, really helpful.
Yeah, thanks so much. I think it brought clarity and understanding to some things that I was thinking, is that personality or is that a trait that covers more of the generation? Some things that didn't quite track with me before, it's like, okay, now that makes sense. It's because we are on different pages and we need to then meet them where they're at and help them come forward with that. So I just really appreciate the bigger picture of understanding, so then we can prepare as well as really take the time to really listen and understand where they're at, and recognize the fact that they have no clue where we're at in a lot of things, and that we have to communicate both sides to then bring that understanding and discover a place that we can move to this common ground. So then we're all like, yes, now we are all on the same page and we can move together. So thank you so much for just the time and effort it's taken for you to research all of that, but then your heart and your passion, we really see that. So thank you.
I was especially encouraged to, even today, started out with the opportunities that are presented by the characteristics that we often have only seen as the things that are challenging. But to see the balance of those characteristics, the opportunities they present for us, and not just the challenges that they present in trying to work together. So I felt like that is just making us look at that point of view was just a really important thing. I appreciated that a lot.
Yeah, I would have to say that was also something that I loved, as I think I can tend towards the pessimism a little bit faster than the optimism. So that was really great. Thank you so much, Angelique. I appreciate so much you taking the time and effort to come and share this with it, because this generation is the future of our organization. And if we don't do better, then we will die. Not to be dramatic, just kidding. I am a very dramatic person. So we really want to thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us. So thank you guys as well, all of you as participants, for taking this time out of your week to be here and to share your own insights and your own stories with each other. It's so rich when we can actually hear each other's experiences and learn from each other. So thank you so much for also taking the time. As always, we will be sending a follow-up email with, PowerPoints and the link to that video that Angelique shared, and, any book recommendations that she's had or anything like that. We will also, in a few weeks, send out the recording of the session. So if you missed something, or if you want to say, hey, I really want to sit down with my team and watch these videos and talk about it, whatever that is, we were going to make those YouTube links available to you guys. That will be in a couple weeks though. So if you don't see that come through, I've not forgotten. It's just because we haven't had time to edit them. All right. So for those of you who have been following us pretty regularly, we have been running free monthly seminars since actually kind of early last year. And we are about to take a 6-month break from doing our monthly seminars. But we are going to be back in September, and we'll be sending out information, but we've got some really great stuff coming up. In September, we're going to talk about self-care and personal closure, and how to help your team strengthen their resilience. So some more on resilience there. In October, we're going to talk about missionary life cycle. What does that look like? How do we help people do well? November, we are going to have fantastic teaching on Sabbath rest and margins, how to put margins in. What does a Sabbath look like? How do you build those into your lives? And then in December, we're going to have a really great topic about debriefing children. So a lot of us have had training around debriefing, but we are going to talk about how to do that specifically for children. So lots of great stuff coming up towards the end of this year. And we will, of course, still be posting on social media, different videos, different tips and tricks and things. So you guys can check us out on Facebook or the Instagram, as the kids say. We also have a YouTube channel where we post our seminars or different short videos. So check us out there. And if you cannot find us, feel free to email us and I will direct you to the right place. So the reason that we're taking a break from our monthly seminars is because we are about to run the Practical Member Care course. That is going to be a 2.5-month online course where we will actually get to party together, hopefully 1 week at the end in Budapest. But if this seminar has started to stir things up in you guys and you're wondering, gosh, how do I incorporate these things? How do I take this new information and integrate it into my team and care for people better, whether it's Gen Z or your elders or, just the millennials that are kind of floating around in your team or whatever. Or you think, gosh, you see the situation that's happening in Ukraine, and a lot of us are going to be receiving people onto our bases. And you're like, how do I help people? How do I take care of people? I would encourage you to think about actually coming to join us for the Practical Member Care course. We only have 5 places left, but you're going to learn things about debriefing. You're going to learn about trauma debriefing. And you're going to gain all sorts of tools around resiliency and how to actually teach people to take care of themselves. It's not just member care is not just for the member care people anymore. It's for all of us. And we all have to be trained. So we're going to learn about how to have harder conversations around depression, addictions, the gender identity issues that Angelique was talking about. We are not afraid to tackle these things. So if you are afraid to tackle those things, or you just don't know how, I would encourage you to think about coming to join us. Or if you know somebody on your location that actually would benefit from learning about these things and gaining some super practical tools that you can incorporate immediately into your teams, then give us a shout. So if you have questions, feel free to email us. Registration closes March 1st. So there is a limited space so that we can keep the quality of teaching high. But feel free to let us know if you guys have any questions. So it's 5:03. My Swissness is cringing. We will release you guys. Thank you so much for being with us. Bless you as you go about your evening and the rest of your week. We'll see you guys later.